In my 7.5 decades of life, I've learned a lot of lessons. And I've learned that most hard lessons come from ignorance. So the idea is to get wise about things that happen and used to happen so that you know what better to do today as they are happening. I was blessed. God blessed me so much by giving me two of the greatest parents on the face of the earth. My dad was ahead of his days. The only thing he really lacked was mentorship. And he had a wonderful supporting wife who held him as a king and took his leadership, which he willingly accepted. But what did Dad do for me? Well, he taught me history. He taught me about things that are today and why they are the way they are and what caused them to happen. I was blessed to live in the great state of Idaho. We don't have near the problems in Idaho right now and eastern Washington that they have in the big cities of the world. Yeah, we don't have opera houses. We don't have some of the arts. But we have people, places, and things. And that's what I want to give you in this video. When I was a young kid, preteen, we went everywhere together as a family. We hunted and fished. We crawled the mountains. We fished and swam and drifted in the rivers. We went from one end of this state to another on weekends because Dad had a job. But I learned the events that happened at different locations from my learned parents. My dad was my mentor until he died. My mother was too. I shot my first deer and cleaned it with none other than the wise guidance from my mother, whom I happened to be hunting with the day I shot my first deer. So I want to tell you I have great appreciation for the outdoors. And I love it because it is a sanctuary for my brain. There's just something about getting out into nature, and particularly into the wild habitat of nature, that changes you, increases your vision, lengthens your dreams. So I want to take you on a journey. I remember my dad saying to me as a young kid, preteen, 10 or 11 years old, "Buckshot, what do you really want to know more about?" And I told him, well, I want to know about Idaho history and the Nez Perce Indian tribe. And he said, well, let's go down to the library and get some books. I hated to read. So we went down to the library, and before we selected any books, this was in Boise, he hauled me off to the librarian and said, I have a new member for the library. His name is David Severin, and he wants to get his own library card. Oh, me, my own card? Me? A badge? Man, that was big stuff. Oh, I'll never forget it. So I signed up and got me a card-carrying, bona fide Dale Carnegie Boise City Library registration card. I could show it to anybody, whip it back into my pocket, pull it back out as many times as I want. It was still there. I was a big deal. I could check out then 2 books, take them home and read them, and bring them back without anybody else's permission but my own. Maybe that's where I started my independence. But that little book, the first one about Chief Joseph, ignited a desire in my heart to read, and I have been a voracious reader ever since. Shortly thereafter, My dad, Al Severin, said, Buckshot, where do you want to go? Find out something about. I said, well, I'd like to know a little bit about gold mining. Okay, so off we went into the wilds of Idaho. I'd like to know about catching salmon in the rivers, so off we went into central Idaho. I'd like to know about hunting elk, so off we went into the Clearwater River drainage. That's how I grew up learning and then reading. And then Dad would take us to what we were trying to find out about and would walk us around the area, let us step on it, feel it, smell it, kick it, taste it. Living, learning, lessons of life. Who stood here? What happened here? Who were the main players? What were the results? From that, I gained a great appreciation of everything that goes on and why it went on and what the results were generated from it going on. You know, it's one thing to read about something, it's quite another to read about it and then go walk around it and kick it and taste it and smell it. The more senses you get involved in the learning process, the more you'll learn. The more you learn, the more you know. The more you know, the more you can apply. The more you apply, the greater you'll be. It's a cycle. It's never violated. The opposite of it is also true. If you don't read nothing, you won't learn nothing. If you don't go walk around what went on where, you miss out on a whole lot of life. Well, from 11 years old on, I was a walking library about historical fact because I'd been to so many of the places. And with all that in mind, I want to take you on a journey now. This is the beginning of a big 2,000-mile loop, all within the state of Idaho. Well, there are not 2,000 miles in Idaho. There is if you stay on the back roads. I want to take you on roads most people have never traveled on. They did years and years and years ago in the 1860s, 70s, but not so much anymore. Why? Well, because there's no hotels, there's no restaurants, there's none of the easy living things in life that, although they're nice and convenient, they really kill your opportunity to learn more because there is no reason to get tough things anymore in your life, and therefore they don't. Most people don't know what you're going to learn on this series of video. It's because I'm wiser, smarter, and better. I'm not better than anybody. I just was blessed with a dad who wanted to teach me and teach me the right way. So I got to tell you, some of you are going to look at this video and say, who'd want to go do that? For you, I feel sorry. Others are going to say, my God, I had no idea this was there. Or I had no idea this happened there. Or I had no idea what the results of that event were. I'm going to take you all the way back to the beginning, before there were any people, white people, Caucasians, Europeans, in the great Northwest. I'm going to take you back to the Lewis and Clark Trail. Show you right where they stood, talked, walked, camped, ate, and suffered. And then I'm going to take you through the back country of Idaho to the old gold mining towns, ghost towns, and show you where it is and what it was. And without those hardy souls, those pioneering spirits, and the obstacles they had to overcome, it would have been a long pull for them. Thank God our ancestors had some grit, weren't wimps, didn't give up, but no matter what, were driven by their dreams to settle this wild country of the Northwest United States. So, with that in mind, I want to take you back to the beginning. Idaho is the only state of the Union that was settled from the west. Everyone else who settled the West came from the eastern shores, crossed the Great Plains, manifest destiny, and then on in to the Rocky Mountains and on to the west coast. Oh, but not Idaho. Idaho was landlocked. It had ground all around it. No easy boat trips there. They came around the Horn, very treacherous ocean ship around the Horn, all the way to the tip of South America, then up the coast to Portland, Oregon, and then up the Columbia River. These are all steamboats. Up the Columbia River, 1850s, all the way up the Columbia to the confluence with the Snake River in central Washington. Then up the Snake River all the way to the confluence of the Snake with the Clearwater River. And at that location, Idaho began. It's where the city of Lewiston, Idaho now sits, which was the original initial capital of the state. It also happens to be the lowest point in all of the state of Idaho, just downstream from Hell's Canyon and the deepest gorge in America. And what does that mean? Well, it means every bit of the water that comes out of the state of Idaho, with the exception of the Clark Fork River drainage, goes through the confluence of the Clearwater and Snake Rivers. Incredible history is there. Lewis and Clark camped there on their journey to the sea. I'm going to take you right to where it is. Now, some of it is underwater because of the dams that have been built on the river. It's kind of interesting. Dams block almost every river in the state of Idaho except for the Salmon River. It's the longest free-running river in America. No dams. Original as it was in its initial state. I don't know if that makes sense to you or not, and I don't know if it excites you or not, but it sure did me. Because I know if you do not know where you came from, you will have no idea of where you're going. Purposed, intentional people know who they are and where they're going, and they allow nothing to derail their efforts to accomplish their dreams. So, are you ready to saddle up? Cinch up your saddle a little tighter? Then let me start now from Spokane, Washington, and take you on a every month new video through all of the founding locations of Idaho and the entire beginning caused by the gold rush of 1860. It's going to be wild, and you're going to see some crazy country. But as you come with me, just know that I've been through it all. I've camped out overnight in tents, sometimes in nothing but a sleeping bag. I've shot deer and elk, grouse, snakes, all kinds of things in these areas. And I was there from 1964 onward as a college student at the University of Idaho, just north of Lewiston. Now, if you pay real close attention, you're going to see things as they were almost 200 years ago. Now, can you gain from that? Oh, I think so. Because those hardy souls that settled it passed on through their DNA to you. Not all of you, but some of you, that same guts, vigor, and never say die attitude. And that's what took us from the 1860s until today. A question. What are you passing on to your kids? What are you doing to further your knowledge and understanding of the past to help those coming behind you? You see, life is really a process of becoming more. And the key to that is knowledge and communication. I hope you enjoy these. And I hope you realize that it isn't much different. What you're going to see isn't much different today than from what it was in the 1850s, 60s, 70s, and forward. Let's have a good time. You may want to watch this more than once, but this is the first in a series through the backcountry of Idaho. Peace and love to all of you. Papa Bear.